Hello and welcome to our closing thoughts video for Soma. Before we do any of that, I'd like to point out something really quick. I was gonna actually drink the tracer fluid before we started the episode, just so you wouldn't complain about us having to drink the tracer fluid, right? And then of course I went over where the tracer fluid was. First of all, let's turn on the lights just so we can see a little better. Here, at least in my playthrough, and fucking surprise, surprise, it wasn't there. Where is the tracer fluid, you say? It's here. Yeah, apparently the tracer fluid is randomized upon new game, or maybe between games or something. I don't know, but it's just an interesting thing to have been done by the devs, so I thought I would point it out just, you know, just so you knew. But yeah, anyway, closing thoughts, the more important section of this little video that we're going to be doing. So, you know, obviously the big question, was this an enjoyable game? I think that needs not answering, because, if you watch the playthrough, let's just put it that way, I think it was made clear that I really enjoyed the game. You know, a couple of caveats, but in general, yeah, storyline was, I want to say, really fucking good. Absolutely enjoyed going through it, you know? The concept, you know, it's not necessarily a unique one, the whole, what is, or what does it mean to be human or whatever, or, you know, life in general, but it was done in a very, I guess, in a very good way. The story was very well written, is I guess what I'm trying to say, and like I guess it was more mature, not like, oh wow, we are the true monsters, Connor, Sergeant John Connor or whatever. We're the true, you know. It was done so well that I can't even put it in words how well it was done. I'm just gonna mumble about random nothingness and pretend like I know what I'm talking about. But yeah, no, the story was solid. There's nothing I can say about it. It was an enjoyable story. I liked going through it. I, you know, cared for the characters in it. I was interested in their motivations, etc., etc., etc. The choices that were required for us to make, well, not really required, but the choices presented to us that we could have made, even though they had no impact on the story whatsoever, as far as, at least as far as I know. You know, kill this person or let them live, do that or something else. It all felt relatively real, you know. You killing the other, you killing Simon version 3, killing Simon version 2 was like, it was uncomfortable, man. It was something that I didn't do easily. It wasn't like, oh yeah, it's whatever, shut this dude off, who cares, this game is bleh, you know. It was, while it had no real impact on the story apart from a couple of spoken lines, it was still a meaningful choice, even though it was not necessarily represented as such a thing in game. I mean, like, there was no consequence of it, so to speak, but it still felt like a proper choice, if you will. So all of that stuff, the feeling of, you know, the uncomfortable feeling created by the game that you're constantly presented with in various choices of who do you kill, how do you define this moment, or like how do you define humanity, how do you define this, that, or the other, or like what do you feel comfortable doing here. All those moments are great, and all of them make you kind of like squirm and, you know, I guess like think about what the devs wanted you to think about, and it's never an easy choice or thought process or anything of that matter. So that part of the game is amazingly solid. It, as far as I'm concerned, this is one of the better takes on the whole what does it mean to be human aspect that sci-fi likes to do. On the other hand, and I don't know if I'm going to be, I guess, popular in saying such a thing, but, you know, not that I care. It's closing thoughts, they're my thoughts, not yours, so suck it. No, but the whole monster thing, right? The whole game doesn't feel like they're needed, man. Let's like let's walk through this together, as I say, as I walk back and forth in the apartment, doing basically nothing. But it's, you know, it's a human story, so to speak, that you go through, and it's very much a story-driven experience that is all about the story and all about, you know, the world, the creating the setting, making everything feel real and alive, having, you know, conversations that are like meaningful, reading previous logs that are meaningful, seeing what people did while you did not exist, and all that stuff. The realization, of course, that you're 100 some odd years old. All that is just jarringly set aside whenever we encounter any kind of monster. And it's just like, they don't really add anything to the game, man. If anything, I feel like they take away from it more so than they add to it. Just like, you're going through a level, right? You're trying to figure out what happened here. You know, like who's alive, what else, you know, what else can be done, etc., etc. Oh, it's look at all these weird messages and whatnot. Oh, these strange drawings these people made, or read these logs. You know, listen to what these people's last words were, and then all of a sudden you hear just shambling down the hall, and it just destroys the immersion almost immediately, right? No, what do you mean it destroys the immersion? The WoW created these things. It's trying to keep them right. So here's what here's what I'm talking about. The whole WoW thing, right? WoW is an AI that is trying to preserve whatever the fuck is left of anything, trying to keep it alive the best way it can, the best way it knows how to, right? So, going off of that, why would WoW create beings that try to kill other beings? That, like, to me, that doesn't make sense. Because that kind of defeats the whole purpose of what WoW is doing to begin with, trying to preserve all of it. If they're running around trying to kill me, and I'm a living being, the WoW is then theoretically trying to preserve, like, what, basically, right? And so, I feel like from a story point of view, they don't make sense. But more so just from a pacing and, I guess, what the game's trying to go for point of view, right? Like, because you're exploring all these hallways, and you're seeing random humans, like, oh, there's a human in a bed lying around that's, like, part machine, part man. There's a dude just, you know, lying in a corner with his chest exposed, and you look inside the chest, and it's just a bunch of machinery, just like, you know, a motherboard with a heating unit, not a heating unit, a cooling unit, sorry. You know, there's like a power supply unit, etc., just all sitting there operating, and then you're seeing his head, you know, breathing and his arms twitching and all that. And it's genuinely creepy to look at this thing, which is now part man, part machine, being kept alive by the WoW. And, like, that's all you need, man. You don't need quote-unquote monsters running around after you being like, oh, I'm a spooky half-man, half-machine thing. Them just being in the hallway, not interacting with you, is good enough. It's creepy enough. You don't need to have the weird, pointless monsters run after you that kind of just break the pacing and the feel of the world, you know? And again, like, that's just me. Maybe the whole not horror, I guess what it was, the whole, I don't know, running away aspect of it is something that people found enjoyable, but I feel like the horror could have been done in a way that didn't require to fall back on your, you know, horror game standards of just spooky monsters being around, run away from the monsters. Now you've run away from them, good job, you did it. And then it's like whenever you do try to hide from them or try to engage the game as it asks you to do so, you know, like hide from them, or do something else, they eventually just find you anyway. It just doesn't matter. Sneaking doesn't seem to work very often. Sometimes it does, but like more often than not, no. And then, you know, they seem to track you really well. So what's the point also? It's like sometimes you'll just sit in the corner and it'll leisurely meander and just walk straight into you like, hey, what's up, motherfucker? Get ready to get bashed, right? And so, you know, it doesn't, at least for me, it didn't work engaging them, I guess, the way the game wanted me to, so I had to brute force my way through most of them, and then that just led to annoyance, which maybe I, you know, misplayed the game in an incorrect way, but I couldn't figure out another way to do it, because the way that I tried to do it, which was, I think, the way the game wanted it simply didn't work for me. So, ultimately, it's just the thought, like, you know, just think about it, right? Them not being there doesn't take away from the game. Or alternatively, if they would have been passive, actually, I feel like it would have acted more to the game, right? You walk around, you actually see these creations that are now alive, or not only alive, kept alive by WoW, but also actually actively walking around and engaged and like interacting with your environment, right? You could have still had the screen tearing effect that indicates that Simon is afraid or whatever, but, you know, be able to examine them, be able to maybe communicate with them, and they'll like make their weird moans and whatnot, but or even have them only be aggressive if you're like super close to it, because, you know, it's like afraid of you or whatever and it's trying to like keep you away, and otherwise it just is aware of you but it doesn't interact with you necessarily. I feel like either of those scenarios would have been, well, not having them would have been neutral because it wouldn't have taken away from the game. It would have just made it less annoying from my point of view. Maybe you added a little bit something to it because it took away the annoyance, you know, some of that, what is it? Negative reinforcement is when you take away a displeasing stimulus. Yeah, negative. It would have been some, you know, nice negative reinforcement to make the game more. Sorry, I lost my own train of thought there for a second. Wait, to make the game more enjoyable, or, you know, positive reinforcement Actually, you know, drop the whole reinforcement thing. I don't know why I'm going into positive reinforcement now. Negatives is as far as we need to take that. It was just... anyway, or have them walk around and be alive, but like, you know, like I previously described, passive until you are literally up in their face. Because then you can examine them, you can see how, you know, the details in their body and how the designers created them, just to see like, oh wow, look at these weird beings created by the WoW, right? But no, as far as I'm concerned, any one of those monsters, which I understand were different beings, like from their silhouettes and from the little glimpses we got of them, but as far as I'm concerned, they were all the same exact, you know, copy-pasted thing, because I never got to get a good look at them, because all in all, it was just me trying to stay away from them and avoid them and not get killed by them. So, you know, whatever artistic time went into creating them is sort of wasted, because we don't really ever get to appreciate them, so to speak. So yeah, that's pretty much the only qualm I would say I have with this game. And I am very passionate about this because it is such a good game. Like, if this would have been just like a whatever game, you know, who cares if there are monsters in there or not? It doesn't necessarily do much, but just because I feel the story and the pacing and the atmosphere created in this game, and the way it's set is so well done, and it's so specifically done in one specific direction, that adding monsters to it kind of just destroys that entire flow. At least for me, it does. But yeah, so other than that, I have absolutely no negatives to say about this game, just only positives. And you know, it was story based and the story delivered. So, you know, if I had to give it a score, I would have really loved to give it a 9.5, but just because those monsters annoyed the ever-living shit out of me, I have to drop it to a 9, because I feel like they do legitimately take away from the game. They don't add to it, they actively make it slightly worse to experience. But yeah, other than that, let's just do this real quick. Oh, there goes our little toy. Flush down the toilet, and we got 19p. Yeah, all this. There's another thing that you can do in the reception area, and it's basically just parts of a password that you can type into a zip file. You know, if you're interested, basically Google Soma secrets like zip or something like that, and you'll find what I'm talking about. There's some like early screenshots of what the game was like before, some videos of some like people playing it. That's pretty interesting stuff. Looked at it before we recorded this video, but yes, 9. I grudgingly give it a 9, even though I believe it deserves 9.5 just because of that one aspect. But I don't feel necessarily good about it. But hey, you know what? I didn't feel good about killing all those beings inside the game, but I was still forced to do it. So sometimes you gotta do what you don't want to do. But yeah, that's that. Enjoyable experience, absolutely. Do you know, recommended to people? Absolutely. If anybody's looking for a story-driven kind of sort of walking sim, but not really, it's good stuff. Puzzles weren't necessarily difficult. You know, concept was interesting enough to keep you going, and absolutely care about everything in the game, what's going on, what happened, etc. And, you know, questions and queries presented to you made you think about things that you may have necessarily not wanted to think about, but we're glad you did. So yeah, good stuff, man, good stuff. And on that, we're gonna close our closing thoughts. All right. I'll see you for whatever we do next. Goodbye.